Okay, welcome everyone to the Monday, June 25th, 2012 meeting of the Brattleboro Planning Commission. A quick agenda review, and I mean really quick, is that we're mostly going to talk about the town plan sort of downstream of the land use chapter. I guess including the land use chapter too. So, without any further ado, first order of business is to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which was June 11th. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I have one little point, which is under the announcement part of the minutes. I said that I would have. It says that I said that I'll have Act 250 notices to share at the next meeting. If I said that, it was temporary insanity because
You don't?
I don't, and I didn't. I don't think, but I think I probably was pretty evasive when I was talking about it. So anyway,
Okay.
I don't.
Should we strike that?
Let's just strike
I
it.
think so.
Because
Yeah.
I don't remember you saying that.
Yeah.
I think it's in deja vu.
Anybody that read that and is here tonight because of that,
Not me.
it's not true.
No.
Okay. So yeah, that one can go.
All right.
And that's all I've got. Anybody else? All in favor of accepting these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been accepted. Announcements. Sue, you want to make an announcement about the Connecticut River Joint Commission?
So the town of Brattleboro has 2 representatives to the Connecticut River Joint Commission. We've only had one for the past couple of years, and he's not interested in re-upping. So I had sent each of you by email kind of what the role is. I think there'll probably be quarterly meetings. And Rod, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a pretty dormant subcommittee. They're looking to kind of rejuvenate and probably comment on some anticipated development applications, dam relicensing, and that kind of thing.
Development with river frontage on either the New Hampshire or Vermont side. So the district for this part of the river is referred to as the Montisticwood Subcommittee, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a joint commission because it's Vermont and New Hampshire,
Yes.
No.
or
Yes.
Bowen and joint.
It could be Massachusetts as well.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's Vermont.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yes, it could be, but it's not.
so it's a select board appointed, I think, position, and we were just canvassing planning commissioners and conservation commissioners to see if there was any interest. Liz has expressed interest.
Only because I know how to spell Montastic.
Yeah.
So we can have 2 representatives, and we can have any number of alternates. So if anybody else is interested. feel free
And
to
where
let us
all
know.
do the representatives come from?
The towns.
Yeah, each town nominates 2 and up to 7 alternates.
Up and down the river, or?
I think Montisticwood goes as far north as, I want to say, Windsor.
Isn't it that far?
Maybe
It definitely goes to Bellas
Bellas
Falls,
Falls,
Rockingham.
yeah. Right.
I'm not sure if
So-
it goes above the dam and then it goes to Vernon.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's sort of chunked out.
Dam to dam, huh? Oh, okay.
Or maybe up to Windsor, which is
Yeah, maybe it's more like Rockingham.
And who from Brattleboro was on it?
It was Monroe Whitaker
Oh, it was?
for over 10 years.
yeah.
Wow.
But like I said, it's been pretty dormant.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So if anybody's interested, besides Liz,
We
let you guys know.
Right, yeah, we'd probably like to wrap it up pretty quickly, just for their purposes as much as ours.
Yeah.
And I think Sue and I have discussed it. It's possible, you know, it's also a position that staff can fulfill. That you don't have to be an appointed member of the commission. So we could either be.
So if we don't do it, you have to?
No, well, somebody needs to, but yeah, something like that.
They might want to.
We might want to. That's right.
Whatever happened with the Wyndham Regional,
We need to follow up on that.
Wyndham Regional Planning Commission.
I don't remember.
Wyndham Regional Commission.
That's right, I think Jim was the guy before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll follow back up with Jim, but are you still interested?
Yeah, if nobody else
Right.
wants to.
Right.
I will let you know.
Okay, good.
So Liz, you're on.
Good job, Liz.
There you go, Liz. We'll be rooting for you from the banks. You meet in the middle of the river, you know, on the
I
island.
understand the New Hampshire line comes all the way to Vermont.
Yep.
High water mark.
I would mark on this side.
So you just have to put one foot in the water and one
Right.
foot on the bank.
We could have it on the deck at the Whetstone, because I'm
There
pretty
you
sure
go.
that
There you
would
go.
fly.
Just have to put some blue tape on. Okay, great. The other announcement is that the TPAG group, the Town Plan Advisory Group, is going to be meeting on Thursday at 3 o'clock in the Anna Cosman room, right next door, for a couple hours to go over the draft of the town plan.
Yeah.
Just to sort of harken back to the old days, the original intentions and things like that, just so that people can kind of review it and comment on it.
Yes.
And how many people do you think are going to be there?
Maybe 5.
Yeah.
There were some that weren't available and a couple that I didn't hear from, but we decided to pursue the meeting anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to give those that were interested an opportunity to come.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So if anybody's interested, that's going to happen in the room next door. And now, any other announcements? Okay. It's time for public comment. Would you like to comment? You're our only public member here.
No, I feel very honored, but I don't have any comment.
Okay. All right, thanks. And we're going to be talking about the town plan, so if you have any questions or comments at that point, you can stand up and say who you are. Okay, thanks. All right, well, let's launch in. There is no reason why, if something has come up between last meeting and this meeting, in any of the chapters that we've already talked about, no reason why you couldn't bring them up now. I think our intention was to try to finish off at land use and then go, did I say downstream? Yeah, it was downstream from there. Yeah.
Upstream of that.
Okay. Well, hold your nose in. Okay. So, anybody have anything about land use?
I just suggest, I told you this, but I didn't tell the others, I have to leave by 7, so if we're going to vote, we should do so. If there's a voting issue, we should do so before that.
Okay. Let's see if there's, see what people have to bring up. The only things that we've been voting on in this process have been things where we were trying to decide sort of quickly on does that get included or does it not, sort of thing. So those things may come up. If they do,
We're going to withdraw that anyway.
okay. The double quorum person just came in, so.
Sorry.
So that means James can leave if he wants to.
Put you on speakerphone.
Actually, can you do it? I can do it.
Right.
Driving down to New York.
Yeah, there's fun on that. So, Starting at land use, anybody have anything that they did not bring up last time? You know, I had one last thing written down that I don't think I did bring up, which was stormwater utility, but I think that wound up in municipal facilities.
Yes. When Liz and I met to talk about the implementation, she had given me some suggested kind of format of taking the implementation of the land use and kind of putting, so that chart in the back, kind of putting it within the district that it kind of applies to. So I haven't gotten around to fooling with that yet, but I think it'll hopefully make more sense.
And don't ask me to repeat it because I don't remember.
So next time you see it, the stuff might be rearranged again in this chapter.
So the proposed changes are going to be broken out by district.
Yeah, so for example, in this chart, any time that we're making a change that would affect the industrial districts, so you'd have a discussion of the future land use area of the industrial districts, and then kind of what are the proposed zoning changes that we're making as well. So that those pieces of the table would be moved.
Like, because like the zoning districts on page 11, they're kind of perfunctory and don't talk a lot about what the intended action would be, but that's all on the chart. So you break it up and put it in by its zoning district.
So this is the whole chart at the end. That's
Right.
It's going to get realigned, sort of.
Yeah, it's going to be put back in the text because it has information that's different from the implementation chart, so we don't want to get rid of it.
How many pages is this one?
And the other goal that I've had in looking through it was to make sure that, how the outline reflects the commission's intentions, but the text doesn't as much. So revisions that make the text more reflect the goals and actions would be.
Emily, do you have anything about land use that you'd like to?
No. I guess I have a question about the area across from Three Stones. Is that all getting rezoned to residential, so it would be multifamily, not mixed use? A big empty, it's like a big parking lot, and then behind it, I think it's commercial right now.
Yeah, that's that area between, starting up at Pine Street all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we all agree that that should just be residential, not mixed use? Yeah.
But that had to be,
Yeah,
I've just-
The buildings on the corner of South Main Street, like where the candy
Yep.
shop is, that's in the urban center.
Right.
But then the ones that are south of Route 5,
Yeah.
up Canal Street are in the residential. And that's gonna end up, that's one of those areas that are, Jeff is making the maths, is trying to kind of buzz up a little bit so that,
I thought
when you get to it at the parcel by parcel level, that when we do the zoning, there's a little flexibility there.
Because as far as being walkable, that area is, the one side of the street is nice because it has some benches and green space and but when it's residential, it's not always as interesting, and if we're trying to leave opportunity for businesses to move in, if there's any new construction opportunity, it seems like that site would be one of them. It just seems like it would be suited, that site specifically would be best suited for mixed use. I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but, because it is sort of a node from downtown, you know, it's like 4 blocks away, 3 blocks away. Kind of like, there's a little neighborhood store across the street, Jones is there, so having just residential there.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of creating more pressure to have a more vital commercial area where there's more of a preponderance of commercial.
But there isn't really anywhere to do new construction downtown. There's only 2 lots.
Well, you know, there's a Putney Road master plan begging for, you know, the home up here. There's vacant storefronts a lot of places.
On Putney Road.
On Main Street.
Yeah.
Are you thinking, I mean, do you want more retail there or more office? Because offices would be allowed as probably.
Well, it seems like if that were to be retail space, the streetscape would first of all be more appealing, and the cost of the space would probably be less because it's not in downtown, but it could be an office or retail space. I don't know. It just seems like in downtown, the spaces that are available are pretty chopped up. Right now, the only kind of construction going on is stuff that is related to one specific use of building. It's not mixed use, like biologic. Does that make sense?
Well, it's also not consistent with what Dick Gordon was saying, you know, like have that area by the Price Chopper be more built out.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you have the downtown, and then you have Putney Road, and then, you know, the goal here was to have a neighborhood in between, kind of a breather, that would put pressure on the other places to be more commercial.
Is that,
I think
is that specific lot in the area where the urban center is on the north side of Canal Street, and it's, would be residential on the side that Timberly's talking about? So 3 Stones would be urban center, but the old garage that she's referring to would be residential.
yes, that side of the street. I think, I mean, what we've noticed, and I think the Hawk report had said is that there isn't the demand for the commercial space. I mean, we're actually seeing spaces that want to go residential. So, as Liz said, kind of zoning that residential, putting a break in there, and putting pressure for the other areas that are commercial, that we're trying to create more into mixed use. It's kind of.
And are we just talking about that side of the street though, not the other side of the street?
From Elm Street,
My recollection is that I guess it's Clark Street. It's on the corner of where the school.
Right.
So from Clark Street down to South Main would be residential. And the only other comment I want to say there is that given the age, I would just, okay, let me back up a little bit. I would describe the commercial space, sorry, along that area as being older but brought-up oriented. And so following a kind of an earlier pattern of retrofitting residential architecture for commercial purposes a little bit similar. I think the last time we talked about this, I made the comparison to the old home over the road that's been extended out to the street and turned into small stores, neighborhood Jones here to the subway. So that's the same kind of 50s through 60s probably commercial development that you see on, particularly on that block. And so that's not sort of respectful or consistent with that underlying residential architecture. It's
Doesn't that
probably
really-
not high rental value or high commercial property value now.
Doesn't respect the historical nature of those buildings.
Right.
either.
Isn't that really more from Hoosiers to the hospital that occurs than in the area to
Yes, it's also true, but I mean, the plan would
We
be,
talked about that, that's
Yes.
kind of the area that I thought we were trying to pressure residential. And I have to say, I'm with Kimberly on this one, because it doesn't make much sense to me to have urban commercial on one side of the road and residential on the other. I mean, I thought we were trying to make our maps so that we didn't do that anymore.
I don't remember that being something that we were trying to avoid because roads are often the natural break. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if we had discussions at the planning commission or in the office, but we had talked
Oh, I'm
about.
thinking of where they cut across the line.
We had talked about whether or not the Clark Street neighborhood should be part of our urban center. I don't know if we did it here at a meeting or kicked around in the office.
Yeah, I think we did, and we decided.
yeah.
We decided it's
That was
really
just-
residential in
Yeah.
character and it's
Right.
a unique neighborhood.
Right,
But
And
now
so
this-
that's kind of the area across from Freestones.
yeah.
These are just recommendations, though. They don't have to be decided here and now, and they might not
Well, it's
be.
it's one of those areas that's fallen on a border, so I think that when we actually go to do the zoning, there is a little bit of latitude to switch priorities. But
Yeah.
But it seemed to me, and I brought this up in two meetings ago, maybe, that when we originally had talked about it, it was just that stretch. And in here, it's been extended all the way up to Pine Street. And is that what we're intending, is to go from Pine Street all the way down to the Abbott Building, basically, on that side?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. On that
Because
side.
early on, like
Just on that
last
side,
last
yes.
July, we talked about getting rid of some of those commercial office, like all these
Right.
little zoning districts that we had that had really not that many different dimensional standards from something else.
But just to be clear, so this would include, say, where the gas station is and where the travel agency is and the
Yeah.
Buffalo Clinic and all that.
And it was part of the,
Block.
it came up with Roger's work on Canal Street, and it came up with Dan Burton's work on Canal Street. And they, without prompting Dan, I guess, they both had similar recommendations that there's kind of an urban fabric there that's frayed a little on that edge that could do with being reinforced. And I think the insight from Roger was if you sort of push commercial back to the kind of the sort of neighborhood centers where you want it to be, you'll get more activity there. And we're not talking about a large distance. And it would change the character of that part of Canal Street away from being auto-oriented in appearance to being much more of a residential neighborhood, somewhat akin, I would say, to Western Avenue, or Western Avenue High Street.
Would mixed use accomplish that as well? If you had a maximum setback?
Well, to be clear about it, in the urban center, so on the Three Stones side, you'd have a mix that was pretty broad in terms of the range of retail uses and the mix that you'd have. And even on the other side, I think currently under residential you could have a neighborhood store, for instance. So it would depend on that.
And you could do office.
And you could do office. So it's residential is broad enough to, lend some mixed use atmosphere to it.
That's what's on Western Avenue, that's residential and
Right.
that's
So it is. So yeah, and then to sort of spell this out in a couple of different ways, what we're really trying to do here is obviously improve the streetscape and improve the neighborhood feel, but also kind of a more bureaucratic thing is to clean up the zoning ordinance itself and eliminate some fairly fine-grained differences between, say, commercial and commercial office and a whole bunch of other things. So we're trying to actually eliminate clean up zoning districts so it's a little easier to apply, easier for applicants to do so.
Clark Street goes, like from the Canal Street School, you go in that driveway, and you go there, and it's kind of a one-way, and it loops around and comes back.
Yep.
So that's kind of a nice, kind of unique, self-contained neighborhood
Yes.
that I'd like to have strengthened.
So we're talking about uphill for there too.
Yep.
But they have it's a Clark Canal Street Neighborhood Association, so it does include canal. I don't know how far up they go, but.
Yep. Sure.
So do we have,
Do we have a,
is there some sort of direction on this?
Well, nobody has moved to change it from what the wording says here, right? I mean, you guys.
I think it should be mixed use, but that's just that. And I guess the reason that I say that is because if there were an opportunity, the market picked back up or whatever, then that space would be, it would be well suited for new construction for retail on the first floor and housing above it. I think housing on all floors makes, I don't know what the numbers look like, it just seems like it would be a missed opportunity. There's a lot across from it was the house with, it was a white house, had green shutters, one block up from the candy store. And right now it's just a flat.
Yeah, there's a house
there
there before.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is zoned residential now.
No, I think it might, I'm not sure what it is now, it might be commercial.
I'm pretty sure
commercial office.
it's commercial, but I think it may also be,
It might be residential.
Mature.
Because the Clark neighborhood is residential,
Yep.
and it could be residential now.
I think maybe residential, but yeah.
Well, where the barber shop and Napa, that stuff is, that there are apartments in there.
Yes, there are
already.
apartments behind and above those
There, so that's already mixed
Right.
use now.
Right.
And I would say, I don't know, it's not great. I mean, it's sort of a strip, you know?
Yeah.
the way it is.
And it could be
The
remaining.
one where the lot is that you're talking about, you know, that's, yeah, yeah. That, you know, where the Napa Auto Parts place is, and the barber shop and all that, there are apartments up there now,
And behind, above and behind.
you know, and it's,
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not.
I mean, I think the reason I don't like it is because Abbott seems pretty far to go when downtown is stopped by the Connecticut River in the direction of the train station. It's stopped by zoning as you head north on Putney Road where you get all residential. And it seems like with the co-op coming in, there's a chance. Lord knows downtown doesn't grow that often, by leaps and bounds. But there's a chance that you could have a little more development out there.
That's what I was trying to say the whole time. Thanks,
No
James.
problem. And I don't know, it just, it seems a little improvident to preclude that, to me, right off the bat. Because I don't think there's any other direction that downtown can go if anyone ever wants to build another big building. And it seems like the way to go with big buildings is like with the co-op did. People aren't building big apartment buildings in Brattleboro.
There's a lot of empty, big building space in downtown also. Huge. Underneath, behind fireworks, there's like in that, what used to be the Italian American building, there's another whole building behind there. That's just that Omega Optical that used to be in, and that's mostly empty.
That's, even though that's the case with existing buildings, it's in many cases cheaper to do new construction or than to renovate a building like the one you're talking about.
Well, it's already been partially renovated, and then there's the building where Lion Travel used to be. That's been sitting empty for years. And yeah, the Cook
Right.
building and where New Chapter was, but that's been reutilized mostly now. But there are
Yeah.
empty spaces downtown.
so what
lots
we're
of-
talking about though is that if if this came to be, then that lot, or that place where the strip building is now, if this was residential, could be torn down and made into a multifamily, or it could be made into single family or something, or you're saying it could be, if it was mixed use, could be retail with, but nice. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Well, I think we've had two planners independently tell us that essentially that area is sprawl or encroachment. And
The Napa, that's sprawl?
yeah. Yeah.
Just
Well,
the-
because it's not in a defined
it's the uncontrolled spread
business
of
area.
located commercial.
It's creeping
Right.
businesses.
In between two different
In
centers.
what is essentially a residential area. So if you want to have, like the Putney Road plan, where you're gonna, that would be the place, or the other existing, that would be the place for you to tear down and demolish something and put up something big and multi-story and whatever.
But as a planners,
Yeah.
don't we think that just Putney Road is a long walk from downtown where we're talking about?
And then there's the price chapter, and then there's downtown, and as a planner, sometimes you put on your hat where you want to encourage commercial development, and sometimes you put on your hat where you want to maintain good neighborhoods and strengthen neighborhoods, and for me, I think that's a neighborhood hat.
A couple of comments here that might be useful. So it actually predates just about all of you except for Gary and Carolina. There was a quite difficult discussion around the section of the sign ordinance that covers Canal Street with regard to how Canal Street is understood and utilized by the retailers that have a presence on Canal Street as well as the passing traffic. And it was a debate that happened before the Planning Commission 2009, Gary? 2000, yeah. And the issue at stake was, first of all, that there was widespread violations associated with the use of sandwich board signs, which are basically prohibited in town. Number one. Number two, the issue went to the question of were the signs oriented towards pedestrian traffic, which was the defense for sandwich board signs being used in the downtown area, nor were they oriented towards and designed to catch the attention of drivers in vehicles. And it was pretty clear from the work that we did to prepare for the Planning Commission then that the majority of the signs were designed to advertise whatever the activity was to drivers. And so, although Canal Street doesn't have exactly the same form as, say, parts of Route 9 or Putney Road, the dominant theme from Exit 1 almost all the way down to downtown is a pretty heavy emphasis towards auto activity. And so both Roger's work and Dan Burton's work pointed that out and said, you're going to get this neighborhood trying to kind of get out, trying to sort of break free of that between roughly the hospital and Elm Street. And if you can, what you should do is think about zoning appropriately so that the neighborhood is reestablished and reinvigorated, and control the commercial stuff by pushing it either towards downtown or back up towards the Exit 1 Canal Street area. So this very suggestion came out of that work and came out of the small groups, and then was, when we worked it through the Planning Commission, that was generally the consensus. The other work that Roger did was to show that there's actually not that much growth in commercial activity now, and it's more than enough commercial space available for future growth, both by category as well as area. And so, to get back to the mixed use argument, if we're talking about the redevelopment of sections of Putney Road, then it's certainly appropriate to pursue a mixed use kind of strategy for the lower third or so of Putney Road, which is what the plan calls for. and what the draft land use chapter calls for as well. But this section of, this boundary, if you like, between the urban centre and the residential neighbourhood, what we're attempting to do is reinforce a walkable neighbourhood that basically accesses downtown for most of its commercial and retail needs. And the view is that there's more than enough room downtown to accommodate those needs. So I think, the distinction between mixed use on the one hand and residential on the other, it's a little bit subtle given the breadth of uses that we would allow or condition. So the permitted uses and the conditioned uses under residential is actually pretty broad in the existing zoning ordinance. And I think my general sense of the way mixed use gets used in Brattleboro, or has been used in Brattleboro in the past, is that it encourages much more emphasis on commercial and on quality residential, and that what we're actually looking for there is the re-establishment of good quality residential space, not so much commercial space. And certainly to discourage auto-oriented commercial development, and the mixed use guidelines that we currently have don't actively discourage auto-focused commercial development in mixed use.
But isn't that what we're trying to change, is the definition of what we want to see as mixed use? Because I feel like we'd be doing downtown a disservice if we're saying, oh, if you want to do mixed use, put it on Putney Road. I mean.
Well, no, I think it's fair to say that most of the downtown already meets the definition of mixed use.
Yeah, but if somebody's going to build a building, let's just pretend like the market would allow that. Would you rather have it on the lot that we're talking about or on Putney Road?
I think it depends on.
I'm not talking about the auto-oriented, I'm talking about something that would be defined in the urban center without the parking requirement.
I think it's actually effective to have a clean boundary between the urban centre, and it actually should be residential neighbourhoods surrounding the urban centre.
Well, and I think the work done on the Putney Road master plan shows that the preference would be to have it on Putney Road.
Right.
Didn't we talk about this when we had all those small group meetings in the office?
Yeah.
And you were there.
Yeah, and then we brought it
I would
back.
never have said that it would be.
We went through all this.
And it was brought back to the larger group. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's okay if you want to go back and redo it. That's okay. But I think
I was just giving my opinion, and
Yeah.
if nobody else agrees, then let's stop talking about it.
okay.
I agree. But we're a minority.
But we don't have to be definitive about this.
No,
I
it's
mean,
not good.
it's
We're not
gonna be
working on the
open.
zoning
I mean,
right
it's a
now.
border, it's gonna be a border area, so there's gonna be the latitude to really hash it out.
Right.
When the time comes, yeah.
And there will be a lot of hashing. I mean,
That's right.
that's the way it is. With existing land and existing uses, there will be a lot of hashing on this one. So not all of these, really, I think,
I guess that other point that I would make is that if the building that's now next to the New England Youth Theater, if that were to be, isn't it the Circus Arts or
Circus Arts.
something's going to happen there eventually, maybe.
And they might tear it down too.
They tear it down. Regardless, there's that loop that we're talking about, that they go to the Center for the Circus Arts, they go to Three Stones for dinner, and they loop around back downtown. And to make that, if it's all residential, I don't feel like James said, opportunity for the downtown to expand is probably right there, or down densifying Flat Street. I don't know if densifying is a word.
I don't think people generally think of Canal Street as downtown though either. I do have to say that. I mean, I don't, I've been here 20 years and when I think of downtown, I don't think of even that part of Canal. I think it's just on the outs, it's a border.
The co-op is it really makes you kind of loop around. I mean, it does a really good job of making that corner interesting now.
Oh, yeah. But as you come around the corner, it's definitely residential on the uphill side.
Right.
Because that's,
The way I look at that stretch is, you know how across from Sportsman's there's those little houses,
mhm.
what, 4 or 5 houses?
Mhm.
We wound up with 4 or 5 more houses along there. I think that'd be really sweet, you know?
Yep.
I
That'd
agree.
be great. And I think when you look at what's there now, sure it's mixed use, but I can't imagine. I don't know what the quality of those apartments are that are upstairs there, but it is, from there all the way up to Pine Street, 2/3 of the businesses are auto oriented.
Mhm.
They're parts or gas station or
Right.
repair or
Right.
car sales or whatever, and Napa,
It's part of the sprawl.
and it's all vehicle oriented. I mean, it wouldn't really, and it's hard to get in and out of a place like that, and the school's right across the street, or, it's now daycare, but,
Right.
it just seems like reducing that kind of use around there would be good. So, anyway, I'm in favor of what we've decided here, what we had decided. Do you want to take a quick vote on that, or?
I think we already know what everyone's vote is. What's it?
Vote doesn't count until we're writing the law.
That's right.
That's
So-
true.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna leave it in.
Could leave
Let's
the
go
way
to
it is.
our next thing.
Yeah.
And always remember our stand.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm thinking back on this. Okay. I'm dreaming. Anything else about land use? You've got 4 minutes. Have you got anything else
Debating whether I should go now.
Yeah.
Am
I pressing the time?
one leaving at 7?
I know, I did.
about? Do you have anything else
Yeah, my
about
class
any
is
of the
done.
other chapters while we're?
I read through the whole thing last night, and frankly, I had signed the thing as it sits.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I mean, I think it's really great.
That's it. So you said that you're about to go to New York?
Yeah, my daughter's flying into JFK at 10:30.
Flying into.
She was at a wedding in California. It's going to be a miserable night for me.
Your daughter?
Well,
My
you're
older
more than welcome
Yeah,
to have,
yeah.
have the cell phone on the car,
Huh? Well, I can call her.
Yeah,
She's with my wife's parents. She's not just flying around by herself. Coast
I
to
recommend
coast.
that actually. It's really good.
Yeah.
I think she had a lot of wedding cake before she left.
Well, this is an Indian wedding, so it was like a 5-day operation.
Oh, wow.
So
So she'll come home with her forehead anointed and all that.
Yeah, she's got.
With the
many
henna,
different stuff.
yeah.
I just hope she's tired. I don't care about it.
When she gets up, James, she's going to feel like lunch.
Yeah, well, probably she slept on the plane and she sat back 3 hours, so I don't think it's going to be so good. But
That's
on
right.
that note,
Yeah. All right. So-
James, as you walk out, I'm gonna give you a draft of the implementation.
a party gift.
You can call in when you get to the traffic.
I read it in the car.
We don't
In
have to
Connecticut.
for now, but next meeting.
Yeah.
Do you want to
How's that plane driver?
give you the plan on tape version?
Oh, that'd be nice.
I would have.
But she's playing in JFK.
Yeah. Right.
You'll be there in 3.5 hours.
Where's he going? Bradley?
JFK.
Oh, JFK, oh
I
my
don't know
goodness.
about that.
Last time you went to New York after a planning commission meeting, wasn't it like 8:30 at night?
Yeah, I don't, it's not good. Goodbye.
Bye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Didn't even wish you good luck, Gary.
Oh, I should have said Frog's neck, but he knows that, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
And maybe it's, I don't know if this is I didn't bring my book, but I'm looking for where the municipal parking garage shows up, and I don't see it under municipal facilities again.
No, but I added, because we had that was on our list from the first night, I've added it in, so the next draft you see.
Okay.
You will see it, but it is in transportation, but not,
Maybe not in this version, I couldn't find it.
it is, but not in the manner that we spoke about it 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. Public parking, page 10 of transportation.
Yeah, I just didn't see any specific.
Yeah, no, there's, based on our conversation a couple weeks ago, you'll see it in the next draft.
Good, all
I've
right,
written that part.
thank you.
Okay, so how about municipal facilities and services?
That was part of my missing, the parking garage. I didn't see it there, and I wasn't sure where we decided to put it.
Okay.
Under municipal, under these.
Yeah, that's what I thought,
So it's in the next
edition.
Can you tell me what bulky waste is?
It's old style rolls.
Yeah.
It's like mattresses and stuff that you can't normally,
Or round rolls.
it's stuff that you need to pay.
Yeah,
for to dispose.
okay, yeah.
Right.
It's like all that stuff that you see free on.
Yes, because that avoids taking it to the dumps. I think that's pretty much the definition of bulky waste.
This is my favorite treat.
Yeah, right.
Who wants that sofa that's been sitting out in the rain for 2 weeks? It's cool.
Yeah, very.
I had several things that, actually one of them is like a real life question. You know, the grass that's growing sort of out front here, the construction that they just did, that was a Cybernet line? Or,
It's a fiber optic one.
This is fiber optic coming into the building here.
That's
Okay.
everything.
It is serving it.
and is that going to the library too?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It's
The
supposed
grant, well, okay, so there's two little related bits going on. So Servanet has rented space on this floor, just between here and BCTV.
Oh,
And that will be where, I'm going to use some kind of old-fashioned term, and I don't think it's the right one, but it's sort of like the exchange for the fiber optic system. So there'll be a whole range of computers and stuff stacked in that room, and maintenance staff will visit it from time to time. So that's the kind of link for the fiber optic in town, for the entire downtown.
All right.
Yeah, and then from
And
there.
will anybody be there?
What's that?
Will it be unstaffed, or will there be somebody there?
I don't think it needs, I think it needs occasional maintenance. I don't think it's, to start full time. And then from there, it'll go to the library as part of the grant program that Servanet participated in that basically brings fiber optic to libraries. And the town itself, this building, will enjoy the benefits of that as well. So we'll be on the fiber optic network.
And that's only-
Stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's mentioned under the library part of,
Yeah.
did you want, and should it be mentioned anywhere else, or is that enough?
You know what? The day I wrote this was when they were digging that ditch.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote it.
Oh, okay.
That's all. This is not really, I'm
Probably
sorry. for
worth
this,
mentioning.
but,
Yeah.
Is there a parks master plan?
There is not a Parks Master
No.
Plan.
Okay. And is that in here?
Uh-huh.
I can't remember.
There is a recommendation for one.
Policy 10.
Oh, good. That would help with things
That
like
would-
skateboard.
Yeah.
Who said that?
But there was a couple of parks that it could help with programming for.
Yeah.
What about spaces like on South Main, above the cemetery? I think 2 people were gonna do housing there and
Yeah.
they decided not to. Is that considered park space or is that private?
It's not considered park space. I mean,
There's
I
like
mean,
a
it's part of-
cemetery, well, town owns that, right? Agreement,
Yeah.
Yes.
Still.
easement or something?
There's a cemetery committee, which is staffed by the town clerk.
Everybody's trying to get in.
Exactly. To do with reasons of the fact that access requires you to register your debt with the town clerk. And
You're on.
it makes less trouble for other people if you could think ahead like that. And then Parks and Rec.
Yes.
Don't go there.
Okay, I got it.
Parks and Rec and Parks is the town department that does maintenance for cemeteries in town. And so they are part of their responsibilities, but I think it's fair to say,
It's not listed as a park.
all
or
right,
a mini
they're
park
not,
or
they're not,
anything.
they're not treated as parks.
But they're not gonna sell it anymore.
Well, that upper land is not considered a park.
Park.
Or at the cemetery.
It's regarded as the entrance to the cemetery.
Consider cemeteries.
On page 3, the first place that the capital improvement plan in the text is listed as CIP, and it seems like it might make sense to spell it out that first
Yeah.
time, you know.
Okay.
It's in the...
Issues and needs.
Yeah,
Okay.
just so that
Right, right there.
non-nerds can figure out what it means. If, of
All
course,
the
if they're not
jargon.
nerds, why
Why
are
they're
they reading
reading
that?
If they made it that far, Gary, they should know what COP is.
Yeah, CIP is like,
Yeah.
yeah, no problem.
I could think of something amusing to be CIP if you'd like.
That's fine.
So stormwater drainage is mentioned in here, but not treatment. And is that,
It is mentioned.
so I wrote this a while ago, you know, but the note I have is we have stormwater drainage but no treatment. Oh, presently we have stormwater drainage but no treatment.
That's right.
And
It's
is that
just
implicit in the whole utility
Yes.
thing?
Well, it's, let me stop before I say yes.
There's a good spot for it between water supply and wastewater treatment.
We talked,
Well, it's at the top of page 6 too, it's that under highway division. Maintenance of the stormwater drainage system is responsibility. That's the paragraph for it, there at the top of the page.
yeah, so there is no, I think I mentioned treatment somewhere.
Well, a
Yeah,
couple
so I
paragraphs
just
down,
basically
you
say
talk
it
about-
goes straight into the river. There is no treatment because it's separate from the wastewater system, so it's separate, it goes straight in. That's why, part of the reason that we're having some problems.
Because other things go straight in.
Yeah.
And increasingly, because obviously it's federal and state regs, you know, it's part of the reason for having a stormwater system. We recommend whatever, a stormwater.
Yeah.
So do we need to put a section?
Enterprise fund or a
Presents that?
program. I think it's addressed, I mean, policy 6, we talk about either having an enterprise fund for the maintenance or developing a program so that, and then in other chapters in land use and in natural resources, we talk about better on-site treatment.
When we discuss it under policy 6, does it refer only to the Putney Road district? Or is it
No,
for the
because
town?
it's not, it's for the town, because there's problems with Canal Street, there's problems with downtown.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Basically, all the old stormwater drainage system areas, it's.
I think that action 1 does, under policy 6, covers what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any text further back that talks much about it. You know, one of the things I have written down, which is something that nobody ever talks about, but we used to talk about it on the Putney Road meetings. There's a big pipe that goes under Putney Road, and it goes to the river, and it's kind of slowly undermining that area.
Is it going to the western Connecticut?
Goes to Connecticut, and what I've heard, this could be a suburban legend or something, but is that where it comes out could get undermined or is getting undermined under the railroad tracks, because there's kind of a pond there, I guess.
Mhm.
I haven't been down there to see it, but I've heard, and nobody kind of has responsibility for it, and it could be a big bad deal someday.
Nobody, you mean like the town public works department?
I think it's been there for a really long time, and I don't know, do they ever maintain anything like that? I don't think they do. I remember the person that brought it up at the Putney Road meetings was somebody who was owned land on that side of Putney Road for, like 50 years.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that when they built Hannaford's Plaza and
Right.
that stuff, that water goes there.
Right.
Um,
And there's consultants that are currently investigating stormwater management along the Putney Road corridor between the roundabout and roughly the bus depot, which takes that land into account. So one of the things that they're doing is establishing exactly where that pipe does go, that may drain Hannaford's, and what happens at the other end of it. I visited the area in question. I think
the outlet.
the outlet, yeah.
How big around is it?
The outlet,
Yeah.
probably 4 feet, maybe
Yeah.
a bit bigger. And there is a gully, a deep gully. It's not clear, sort of what formed it. So there's sort of this valley formed by the railroad bed, and then I think the land prior to the railroad bed just dropped off and then flattened out, sort of with a natural platform, formed by the river, over thousands of years. And so it goes like this, but now it's got this railroad bed in the middle of it. And there's a culvert. No, there's no culvert, that's the question. And so the question is it seeping under the railroad tracks and moving towards the river without undermining the base of the railroad tracks? Or is it pushing against the base of the road, the road bed for the railroad track? And I think the view is that it's probably seeping, and so there's a sort of a seasonal backup. There's also a pond there roughly that turns up on maps, and so it's not clear whether that was pre-existing. In other words, the pipe is draining into a pre-existing pond, or whether the pond was formed by the outfall.
We call it Hannaford Lake, right?
Yeah. So hopefully that'll get clarified in the consultant's report. It's definitely a topic of interest. And
that consultant report will, so to speak, flow into this stormwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's reasonable at this point even to say that they're recommending something like a stormwater utility as a management tool.
Okay. All right.
But there's a policy for stormwater management. Shouldn't there also be a section in the text for stormwater management?
It's discussed as an issue in on page 6. Because it's basically the highway division is in charge of it. So it's one thing that the town hasn't, well, the system's all, maintenance is getting to be a bit much. I mean, we've had development reviewed with the Public Works Department, and then we'll make a comment, well, if this is built, it's gonna be, a full-time job for somebody just to maintain it. So I think it's definitely an issue that's on the Public Works radar. But it's not something the town has, other than maintaining it through highway division, has really
And I think
made much progress with.
Yeah.
right, and so I think that the question would fall into kind of two categories, Liz. So a lot of the newer development, and by newer development I mean the redevelopment of existing sites, the requirement to obtain a stormwater permit is something that's been established by the state, and the stormwater is treated on site. So, for example, the newer redevelopments of parcels along Putney Road, the KFC and 99 and all those fall into that category where typically they've got underground infiltration systems. And that's in Vermont, that stormwater permit is issued by the state. So they're meeting state requirements there. So it's sort of the balance of the system that's more of interest. So it's older permitted systems, and that can be as recent as something like Hannaford's, which obtained a permit under an earlier era of state stormwater permitting, or it can be much older. So in the downtown area, for instance, kind of the combined. Your stormwater runoff is, you know, collected in the gutter, and taken to catchment basins, and makes its way to the river, basically untreated, right? And so,
Yeah, my concern was more of a formatted
Right.
thing that you have.
right,
Yeah, I mean, we could,
You know, there's like 11 policies and
yeah,
you couldn't easily find them in the text.
yeah, I mean, I structured it by kind of responsibilities of departments, and that's why it falls under there. Maybe if you guys think that it makes more sense to call it out more rather than bury it under highway division, maybe, I think it's an issue of,
Well, I think the easiest way to do is when you're talking about the needs, mention that
right,
it's a policy
yeah,
of this
what
report.
we talked about, yeah.
I was gonna say, can't it just be referenced, you know,
Yeah.
policy 6,
right.
issues and needs,
Yep.
policy 6.
Okay, yeah, but it's a big deal. And we know that, so,
Right, and I think,
When it's a big pile of land use.
right,
yeah.
we discuss it in some detail in land use, so it should at least match up here, I guess. So that's a good.
Okay. I just had one more thing, which was, I wonder, and I know we're not exactly doing this in the format of this, but on page 4, the issues and needs paragraph there, the last sentence is expanding the town's capital planning process. So there is greater commonality, et cetera. Is there any way to either in bold or underline or something like that, really make that jump out? Or would that be something we would do? Because I feel like that's something that we've talked about a lot, and I would hate to have somebody miss it.
You want to make a tip box?
And also one of the finance committee recommendations as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Want me to do formatting?
Is there a policy?
You know, I'm just looking, there isn't.
There isn't, I was working on those a little bit today, so I think there's a couple ways. Rod's suggesting a text box to really highlight it, but also I think
Or
really
something.
linking it to an action or a
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah,
There's kind of a broad policy, it's not,
Well, it goes under the goal. The second goal is to foster orderly and fiscally sound development of Brattleboro. It sort of is a part of that goal.
it goes under policy 1B, but yes, I mean that goal as well, but coordinate the adoption of future capital improvement plans with consideration.
Yes, it's right there.
Kind of, it's not exactly the same, so.
uh-huh. Just to reinforce it, the text box might be a really good thing, you know, especially if somebody's looking through it and, you know, they've never made that connection before.
Is there sort of a formatting rule? I don't think we've decided on whether text boxes should be devoted to sort of definition statements. So one strategy that we're taking with trying to identify what would make a good text box is where a new term is introduced in the plan. So for instance here it could be, what is a capital improvement plan? that would make a good text box. And so things like this, which are sort of
Policy.
sort of a policy, maybe not a text box.
Yeah.
So
But
then
when
I,
you're defining what the capital improvement plan is, you mention that
Right.
the finance committees make recommendations to the.
right,
Can't that sentence, instead of ending that paragraph, begin the next paragraph, the smaller paragraph? Because it talks about one way to link the town plan and capital planning is to blah, blah, blah. And so it might be a better way to start that paragraph
yeah, it's actually a good idea.
instead, so that the other,
Right.
because
Yeah.
most of the other thing is a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's more about, that's more in line with the policy action statement, and it goes with that next paragraph.
That would give it more emphasis too.
Good idea.
That's great. You go there, Gary?
Yep, that's a great idea. Okay, what else?
Yeah, my hands were the same thing too.
MFNS.
I have, just really one comment. Is there somewhere in this chapter that we talk about the volunteer effort to beautify the town, like exit 1?
No.
Yeah.
Is
But
there
there's a new term for it. Do-it-yourself urbanism.
Oh, it's yourself.
Well, deviating from the do-it-yourself theme for a moment, I would think that, because we talk about the municipal center, I would think that a town-sponsored beautification project would be in order to have at least one crowning flower around the municipal.
What I do say,
But you would
on
not be able to
page
see the
11,
beautiful blacktop.
the end of the last sentence on page, in the first paragraph on page 11 is my,
Under municipal, are you still in municipal services?
yeah, my lame-o attempts to drive the beautification.
Well, you
Maintaining
define
a program
beautiful.
of these spaces are challenging given budget limitations. Something
Community
that is
involved.
needed to help maintain these spaces. It's not a very strong, it's not a prod to the town to do anything, so if we need to, if you think it should be more of a prod, then
Well, couldn't
Well,
you,
scapegoat.
all the public meetings that we had and all the meetings about the town plan and all the whiteboards and commentary and everything else that's I've heard is, beautification is so paramount that, people have taken it into their own hands. But there is, a little show of support within the town building might be appropriate.
And what do you, one damn lousy flower, is that what you said?
Pretty much.
So that's what you'd like from the text box? Is it too much to ask for one lousy flower?
Yeah.
also, I
Just
mean,
want to get that down right. Do you need a picture of a flower? Do you think that would help them?
Flower
you
wax.
can have a picture of
I
Ron
want a flower
participating.
box, that's what I want. I want a
What
flower
do you
box.
want?
A flower box.
Picture of the town planner, we have the police chief, they're all volunteering as part of beautification.
I can show you nice flowers in Wilmington.
I'm sure you could.
Well, we have other the medians that have been already done. But you could, in lots of places you're listing different arts organizations, say for instance, and this could be a place, there could be another sentence there that comments about the recently, the new Gateway, Exit 1 Gateway crew, but that's not to not acknowledge the other meetings that have been done. Different civic organizations have taken
Yes.
We can
them
do a
on.
before and after to show the results.
Oh, what a nice idea.
Yeah, you could do that already for Exit 1 and put that in the plan as a picture.
And are you proposing a before and after for the front of the building here as well? I think they're finished. Just checking.
Maybe we could get,
But Exit 1 was directly a spin-off of all these meetings.
Yep, I think we mentioned that somewhere. Or we might mention that under,
But that would actually be a good picture
Photoshop.
story because the garden looks great. Just after the winter. I must say so.
You know, the good thing about the blacktop is that the weeds will grow through it. Some of those flower.
let's keep
Oh,
going.
that's-
We're almost there. Let's keep going.
Okay, here we go. Anything else? We're headed for natural resources.
Or more flowering.
So you're gonna talk about volunteerism and
Yeah.
beautification in this?
And their natural resources?
No,
No.
under municipal.
No, I just want.
Under municipal, yes.
So.
I'll be sure to
natural
take a few more
resources.
pictures and bring you the after shot, the real after shot.
Look, here's a text
Shot,
box. Goes the floodway.
Oh, nice.
You would notice. Oh, right.
So natural resources, who would like to begin?
Would like
did this one already.
Very
We've been over this
Yeah,
pretty thoroughly.
yeah.
Is that under goals, is that supposed to be a goal, protecting against the ecological integrity of the town's natural communities? Is that, or is that just
I'm sorry, could you repeat
is that
that?
supposed to be number 4?
I don't know, I have to figure that out. It might be number 4.
It's important.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Good.
Would riparian buffers be in the fluvial erosion hazard regs or no?
No.
I know the state wasn't doing it that way, but
No.
All right. We have a riparian buffer already for the West River
West River.
and Connecticut.
Not all of
in the
them.
shoreline regs?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And riparian buffers are, I think there are criteria under Act 250 review as well. So you just be a little bit careful about where it comes in.
And I'm not gonna get me saying that word in public,
Conservation district.
other public places than this one.
Riparian.
I've said it before, paid the price.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's still traumatized.
I'm serious.
Policy 3, I wondered if, it says maintain and enhance the urban forest cover. I wondered, I don't know how many acres of actual woodlands there are that are town-owned.
So this was kind of a placeholder. We've got basically 3 kind of town-owned areas that are forested, but I wouldn't consider them urban. Well, Living Memorial Park, but
Yeah.
I mean, that is probably the only urban. I added, because it was missing, so you can see the next draft. maybe. But I had more of a discussion of the urban forest. When I originally wrote this chapter, I hadn't heard back from the tree advisory board, and they've sent me some stuff in the meantime. So there's kind of a paragraph or 2 about the urban forest, what exactly it is. Basically being street trees, all the trees on the property. And they did send some actions and things that they're working on. Want to work on. So we have kind of 3 town forests per se. There's the Living Memorial, that's pretty much managed for recreation. And then there's the Richardson Town Forest, and Pleasant Valley is also forested. Those are managed more for, let's see, ecological purposes.
Where's the Richardson Forest?
It's on Holiday Brook.
Oh.
I think it's mostly standing pine trees. And they just had, maybe within the last year, had a forest management.
Okay. That was going to be my question, whether they were managed parcels.
Yeah. And the Pleasant Valley Reservoir is
There's supposed to be a nice demonstration or lecture about the forest resources at the museum on Thursday night.
Oh, video
This
YouTube.
Thursday?
Yeah,
That's
my
their
God.
exhibit is trees.
but they're having a lecture now or something about the number of forest trees.
Was this to follow up on the tree art stuff at the front?
Yeah.
What time?
7:30?
And then the only other thing I had was action 4.1, something that I got mentioned at town meeting actually for the Memorial Park redo there. It was, Monroe talked about it, that it was pervious pavement, and I haven't heard word one since then about it, and, you know, it seems like it's one of the few places in town where there's pervious pavement. I think it was supposed to be pervious pavement, I don't know.
I
He
know
doesn't
the
know
farmer's
what he's
market.
talking about.
Yeah.
I know the Mallory lot from the farmer's market, I think is where it is.
No. But the,
Check it somewhere.
I remember at town meeting when Monroe was doing a thing about it, you know, just talking about it, and I I thought that was a demonstration for pervious pavement in the Memorial Park parking lot.
Yeah, I'm remembering.
I'll check into that, that can make a big text box story.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, because if it did in fact happen that way, then that's a good thing to publicize. Remember that, what do you call it, LID thing? Remember they had the demonstration project, they had like 5 of them in South Burlington, and one of them was just like that. So, yeah,
Like I said, if it's not in, we should not.
okay.
Do we need to acknowledge that we have a tree board, and does that come under natural resources?
That's, it's gonna come in the, you'll see it next time. That's right.
Just occurred to me as you were referencing them, I thought, I haven't seen anything about the tree board anywhere.
Any other
Is
natural
there a list
resources?
in the appendix for boards and so forth that?
Commissions, yeah.
It's not something that we were planning on.
It's probably on the town website.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
We took some of them. Okay.
Anything about natural resources? Okay, we move on to transportation. For action 3.1. I know we never said what this would be, but I wondered if there should be something about public input and what the forum for that would be, or the venue or whatever.
Unranking the sidewalk upgrade.
Yeah, well, how would people get in on that, Because that's one thing I feel like people have expressed an interest in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Carolina pointed that out about this policy in the past, and my response was that it's kind of given to us. I know when I had the conversation with Steve, he was okay with it, and it's always been a challenge on the public front because everybody wants what's in their backyard fixed.
Sure.
So we're willing to help, and we heard a lot about this.
What
So
does
we
the
originally-
Public Works Department do now?
They do have it kind of a ranking of the condition of the sidewalks. And then, they'll try to leverage any grant opportunities.
They have a fixed amount in the budget for sidewalk maintenance, repair, and potential new sidewalk. And they try and piggyback onto any road upgrades, so the resurfacing of Main Street, for instance, or for some opportunities for sidewalk improvement. And other grant opportunities that can present themselves over time.
Well,
Let's
that
say
just sounds like a
internally-
very logical system, and if we're open to the public, it might be helpful.
I think, yeah,
That's been their thinking in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think that internally they kind of have some sort of idea of what's next, and then other things might bump it if they can take advantage of another opportunity. But I think that the issue might be that people don't even know what's
It's a communication.
So they can call Public Works, but
Yeah.
there's no sort of.
well, I don't even
public
think there's
work.
an actual
I think that the other venue for where these things could be brought up and we'll discuss and even seek public input is probably traffic safety committee, which reports directly to the select board. So, and I think in the past, I don't know, since Christmas, we've seen quite an expansion in sort of the scope of traffic safety's involvement with the public. And
Because traffic safety is such a big issue.
right, and Director of Public
pedestrian.
Right. Director of Public Works is a standing member of that committee. The only other comment I make is that budget, the line item for sidewalk work is such a tiny fraction of the real cost involved in doing dramatic upgrades that the ranking kind of is kind of moot almost, because it's whatever they can get done in the coming year.
But if we're asking for a shift in priority, then I think
But are we?
out on the table and getting them.
Yes.
Well, I think we are. I mean, I think it's come out of the process. I mean, if people in West Brattleboro keep, up near Westgate and keep talking about needing a path or a sidewalk, then I think that they're taking seriously and find a way to work it into our capital improvement plan so that
So
spending
this
more.
is new sidewalk?
Well, no, it's everything. I mean, it's a major replacement.
It's the one.
It's, we're trying to deal with Putney Road, and we've now got the state's put the sidewalk in the bottleneck area, but there's nothing stopping us from doing it.
Right.
How are we gonna?
But I think what you're saying, Sue, is that, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about hinges on good pedestrian access.
Yes.
Throughout town. We know that that's not a realistic goal in the short run, but, and especially as money is tight, I think the process really needs to be opened up to people so that you don't have things like, all the upset that there was about the downtown plan. Clearly, whether people were right or wrong, they felt like they didn't have a forum to talk about these things until they show up. 10 people line up at the select board meeting to talk about these things, and it's really kind of late in the process for that. And I think that was the select board's reaction too. It's kind of late in this process, and yet people must not have felt like they had
The venue earlier on.
sufficient
Yeah.
time and place to talk about it. So
Right.
Even if it's not, it has to be communicated that we want your input. We're not necessarily gonna do exactly what you say kind of thing. but
Or
we
in the
want-
order that you say it should.
That's right, or the order, but we want input,
Consideration.
we're gonna give you consideration against our, and see if there's a way to make them mesh or whatever, and to also explain that there's, but, I mean, if I went to a meeting like that, even if I wanted a sidewalk on my street and heard that there were budgetary constraints and, you get one on your street or my street or your street, well, if somebody's explaining it a little bit more and there's feedback and information given, people might understand a little better. Some people might still be upset, but I think it's important to have some, especially since we're looking for citizen participation in all these Dan Burden things, all these things that are.
Well, the paragraph on page 8, talking about sidewalks. Kind of explains, I guess it doesn't really talk about public works, but there is a little box that maybe needs more explanation. But I think you do mention some sidewalks that have been considered in need of a priority sidewalks, so.
Which are all the arterials.
Yeah, you say it right there too.
Right. So I think.
So I think you
I think-
have to link the action to this
Right.
paragraph.
And I think it's fair to say that and I don't want to put words in Steve's mouth, but if Steve were here, he'd say, for him, the major priority is to establish reasonable quality links between the downtown in each of the neighborhoods beyond downtown along the major arteries. So for him, it's the bottleneck along Route 9, and there's a couple. There's one over the interstate, and then there's a crucial one at Melrose where the bridge is.
Isn't there a sidewalk map in one?
Yeah,
Did
there
we
is.
get it?
And then there's one on 142, just north of Morningside, which
Those
makes
are-
it difficult for residents from that area to walk into downtown.
You listed all those
Right.
here.
And then the other ones, probably the big one in some ways is Putney Road, right near your place, and back towards the bridge.
Mhm.
And so if we were to rank what is priority number one, either in terms of new construction or establishing new sidewalks, it'd be each one of those bottlenecks that would be identified. And then beyond that, I think that there's a range of known areas of difficult the poor condition sidewalk in and around the downtown that needs to be upgraded. And so,
I would take
Board of
these
Directors, one of those
specific roads and put them in bullets.
yeah.
Rather than in a paragraph, yeah, I
And
think that's a good idea.
and then a little bit more verbiage about the DPW's process.
Right.
And then maybe also something else about, the increased intensity about this topic because of the fatalities.
Right. And then I think the other, a bigger question that I think is not entirely answered at this point is the allocation made to sidewalks versus other line items in the highway department budget. And so so I would distinguish that question, I guess, from some of these, and I don't think we formalized anything like a recommendation, something to alter that.
Yeah.
But
Or maybe an acknowledgement that it would need to be altered.
yeah, but exactly, even so to follow on from what you were saying about the added interest in, if we're going to make a greater commitment, which seems to be the outcome of all the work that we've been doing and the recent interest, subsequent to the fatalities, it's going to need a bigger allocation of resources.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's probably reasonable to say that.
And
Without
sort
getting
of
into
a-
specifics about how much or
Right.
how soon or whatever, it just needs a big commitment.
Well, it'd be good to point out that it's kind of a zero-sum thing, right? If it goes to roads, it's not going to go to sidewalks and vice versa,
Right.
Or that each thing gets a percentage of the whole, and the whole's not getting a lot bigger.
Right.
So,
Right.
Well, yeah.
So if we're gonna put more money into sidewalks, it's gonna be a reallocation rather than
Yes.
find it somewhere. I mean, some money will come from places that we didn't know it was gonna come from,
Right.
but,
Is there a discussion about parking meters anywhere in here?
We discussed that.
We discussed parking meters in municipal facilities and services, no?
No, I added it. You'll see it in next draft.
Right. In which chapter?
Yeah.
Because we did
Facilities.
that's what she always says.
No, you really will. I did that. You can come to
Jokes
my
on you,
office.
Gary.
I can
Okay.
email it to you today.
Right. So-
I'll
My
like
computer
it,
shut down.
DCT.
Okay, so, yeah, so we don't,
Is that you, Gary?
Uh,
Is that you?
I think that's me up there,
Wake up.
wondering what I'm doing.
it's, yeah,
Very
it's,
disconcerting.
I know, it is. Nuts.
it's, I think we treated it like a municipal function, part of the parking system service.
Well, if part of it's discussed on
Enterprise.
page
Page
10,
10,
so maybe
so-
it'll leave 10 and go to municipal
Right.
services, but.
Yeah,
Those like
Oh, public parking, page 10.
yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
So maybe, is that a recommendation you're making to put
I was
all the discussion of parking in municipal, whatever it is, facilities and services?
I need to read this public
Okay.
parking paragraph before I can comment on it, 'cause I don't know.
You have to see the other one too, because the other one's more
Yeah.
critical. Well,
Free holiday parking?
it includes that, Liz.
Along with
And it
flowers.
includes Northampton system.
My work is done.
That's it.
Is there anything in this that addresses the blurry line of where you can do on-street parking?
No.
Are we not gonna go there? Like, in front of Sportsman's, it's always, and on Putney Road, in front of the church, people are parking there, and it doesn't, the road's pretty narrow.
It's the same
Right.
people, you'll notice.
The people who are Sportsman's and.
Yeah, looking for redemption.
Next day, they're right out.
Looking for escape and then looking for redemption. It's an old pattern there.
Whatever I don't know, there's just some places, specifically on Putney Road, it's almost like part of Putney Road should be on-street parking. Well, it's all residential, I guess it doesn't have to be. Canal Street, there's some spots, if we're trying to encourage double driveways and this urban center concept, there's some places that would be suited for on-street parking. But it's, I know there's issues. In West Brattleboro, I remember there was some kind of a plan for Brookside that was trying to do mixed use somewhere, and on-street parking seemed like a good option, but then something about the state and it slows traffic down. Walking on Putney Road sucks. But it would be nicer if there were a buffer and a bike lane.
Do you want to do this? Yeah, I think what you've thrown out is a bunch of different issues, a bunch of different locations. I think what we have in the zoning ordinance right now for urban centre is that applications for development do not require to show off-street parking or accommodating the parking created by the new use. And so the expectation is that residents or workers or whoever it is associated with that new development will find adequate parking in the neighborhood, basically downtown somewhere. And then the more narrowly described question of where is on-street parking allowed and not allowed, again, is a matter for the Traffic Safety Committee to review. And they generally review it against criteria to do with, is it an arterial road or not? What are the actual road conditions? What are the needs for parking in that particular area? And does on-street parking create hazards for other road users, including cyclists and pedestrians? So that would take into account the stretch of Canal Street from the Sportsman's Lounge south, which is sort of uphill, and certainly the Route 9 configuration in West Brattleboro and near Brookside condos, and things such as sight lines and those kinds of things are part of that equation there. And then lastly, various people make presentations to the Traffic Safety Committee to have on-street parking included, added. The most recent effort, I think, was Stevens and Associates on behalf of the co-op application for on-street parking curving around the hill, starting from the entrance, winding around the hill, and that was denied. And so,
mainly because of snow. Mainly because how hard it would be to get going on that hill.
Yeah, I remember in all their site plan pictures that always had parking there.
and the other one was the inclusion of bump outs and on-street parking and a kind of a pedestrian scaled street development for Valga Street, which is a dead-end street running off South Main towards Cottonmill Hill, and that was also denied.
Why is that? Too much money? It would cost too much?
No, the applicant was willing to undertake the work, I think. No, the rationale there was that they wanted to not have to confront parked cars in winter because it's a no parking during winter street. And they wanted to ensure adequate emergency vehicle access to the apartments. So those are the kinds of considerations that get made, and that's the venue that they get made in.
Who makes that decision, the DRB?
No,
The Traffic Safety?
Committee.
With recommendations.
Well, how about it?
With recommend-
There is a mayor on that committee?
I am.
Don't they have to, they then go to the select board, don't
This,
they?
any change that they recommend to an ordinance goes before the select board and it's voted on. And then when the select board is doing that, their meeting is road commissioners. So it's basically within the purview of the select board.
Do you
And
not
they're
like
not-
do you not like on-street parking? Is that not a good thing? Because in that picture, like Canal Street, what's his name? Dan Burton, the one that he did, every picture has
Mhm.
cars on both sides of the street, and it seems like every time we talk about it, there's 10 reasons why nobody likes it and 2 reasons why it would work.
The problem is who has the authority over it.
Right.
So, you know, while the planners might think it's a good idea, we don't really have
Isn't
to
the
say
biggest
in
reason
roads.
snow?
Yes.
Biggest reasons.
It's a large part of it. So, yeah, what I just outlined was the decision-making process, which I have one say in. So, it's not, you know, so what I'd say is that when you see the conclusions, it's reflecting the, you know, the view of the whole meeting or the entire room. Sometimes I think it's okay, sometimes I think there's issues with it. But in general, I think on-street parking is beneficial in terms of traffic calming and other uses. But I also think that, you know, my role doesn't include being in charge of snow plowing or dragging abandoned vehicles or broken down vehicles off the road or those kinds of other things, which other personnel involved in the decision are.
So is it also overseeing who can enforce, like let's say it's on Canal Street, if it's gonna be multifamily, in order for the numbers to work, they can't do on-site parking. And it's not zoned urban center, but you could get 9 spots in front of this place on Canal Street. Does that fly or not? Or is it just like daytime parking or nighttime parking only, or?
There's winter parking.
There's winter parking.
Yeah, it's overnight.
There's
Park on
winter-
that street for
yeah.
That's the
winter.
biggest.
The single biggest issue is the night parking ban in winter. And then, you know, my understanding is, and my experience has been that when you drive up and down the bottom section of Canal Street, so from Elm down to the Malfunction Junction, it's common that there's cars parked on the, at least on the Sportsman's Lounge side, pretty frequently, 24 hours a day. So I think the issue there is, yeah, dealing with the snow. And it's not a town that for whatever reason has moved to the, you know, odd and even side of the street or any of those kinds of modes for dealing with snow removal.
Well, I mean, as far as snow removal, I mean, if you're gonna park there, plow your own self out. I mean, right? Get a shovel, that's what you get for having a
Yeah,
parking
but no,
spot
but
in your
it's
car. No?
where do you put the snow that you plow off of the street?
On your neighbor's car? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's, I mean, effectively what's happening is the snowplow is operating in the street,
Yeah.
and he's not going to operate in the street if there's a risk of damaging parked cars. So,
Okay.
so you just can't combine snow removal with a large snowplow and park cars very easily at all. So, in big cities like Boston and New York City, they do it by eliminating, you know, by moving the cars around constantly
Or plowing them.
or plowing them in.
That's
Yeah,
right.
they don't move the cars, no cars move around in Philly, it's just everybody gets plowed in.
Right, and so,
And then you just dig your own car out.
right, and so I think,
It's a culture.
It's a-
And
yeah.
in New Jersey, if you plow out your spot and someone takes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Firearms.
Yes.
so, yeah, I'd say it's, you know, the current settings, if you like, are arrived at by the deliberation of the key personnel on traffic safety, and those are the recommendations that do it and go forward to the select board.
Do many people come to traffic safety committee meetings?
I would say that in the last 6 to 8 months, it's picked up dramatically. So when I first started working here, it was unusual to see any member of the public. There'd be an occasional handful of people making a representation about on-street parking or some, either to eliminate it or to have it,
A particular place?
yeah, of a particular place.
I went before them a couple of years, well, it was more than a couple of years ago. Greg Warden was still on the select board then, so
Right.
a while
That's a
ago.
while ago.
I went before them twice to have some changes made, and they were willing to do a temporary
Right.
trial
Right.
And then the select board said no.
Right. So I'd say it's still issue-based. So if it's, if it's Guildford Street, you get the residents of Guildford Street. If it's Western Avenue, you get people from Western Avenue, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Around the traffic, around the pedestrian fatalities and so forth, it's been a little broader, but it's still pretty narrowly focused. So
Traffic safety isn't recorded for BCTV, is it?
no, I don't believe it is.
That would be maybe a good recommendation, because that, again, is very citizen. I mean, it takes in all the different departments and people that interface at the committee itself, but that's a place where public, I don't know, people can get educated from that.
Right.
The people who want to watch there. I mean, there are people who watch these meetings who don't come to them and who would never come to them, but they watch, and they call people up and they comment.
Right. So it's more, what I was trying to lay out was, for our purposes in the town plan, if we're going to have what I wanted to make sure was that you're aware of what the sort of the boundaries are between the work of the planning commission and the groups that would be the ones that make the decisions that change these things.
Sure.
So if you want to make a clear statement about the what kinds of things the traffic safety committee should take into account, or how those recommendations get moved forward to the select board or something, and then we could give thought to framing something like that. But it would need to be in that context, rather than just sort of saying we think there should be more on-street parking or something. It's just.
I would think that at the very least we should do something to call out I shouldn't say call out, but to explain what the traffic safety committee is, so that if somebody has a,
I don't think we discussed it at any length, do we?
maybe it's mentioned in one set of parentheses, not to, but just to
So
say that's a place where some of these things get decided.
Yeah.
And if people aren't aware of that, it would be a place they could go to and talk, bring up their concerns.
I mean, I'm not sure entirely how it's done in other communities or in other states, but I know in Vermont, what you're really seeing here is the statute bracketing out people's job roles, if you like. So planning commissions in Vermont, unless they're asked to by the select board, don't really take on the question of road design, including sidewalks, and it's to be remembered that most communities in Vermont don't deal with on-street parking versus off-street parking because they don't even have downtowns. So, if people want to put it in the context of something like Putney or Westminster, you can imagine this doesn't take any space up in their town plan at all, right? So this is how the statute is framed for some sort of hypothetical Westminster. So parking and off-street parking and those kinds of matters that don't really get addressed very frequently.
Well, that's the second time something like that's come up tonight. I mean, first
Right.
we were talking about the tree board or whatever. So maybe an appendix with these are all the town departments might be interesting, because I thought it
Or
was.
committees, there's a difference between committees and departments.
Right, I mean, the thing that's interesting about traffic safety when I attended was that it's the only time you really get to see town staff interacting,
Right.
and I thought it was interesting.
And it is a place where the public can come.
Yep. So maybe one thing, I'm not sure if I'm totally, one different approach would be, when we're talking about the plan, and when we're talking about land use and the things that are the kind of the backyard or the home turf of the planning commission, it's pretty clear how the public is involved in the process, through these meetings, through public hearings, if there's a zoning change or whatever it is. What we don't include in the transportation chapter is how does the town establish what the needs of the community are around aspects of the transportation system, and that would include on-street parking or
Sidewalks,
and bicycle paths, and so there's a whole. So if there's an explanatory note to be added in here somewhere, maybe it's around how does the public participate in the decision-making process of maintaining the road network and ancillary functions. Maybe we can. Do you want to do it that way?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds good.
You are at that?
Yeah.
Do you want me to do it?
I mean, I do think that's the point, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that, it occurs to me that that's what you're really, here, that's what you're looking for, just as if you're looking at natural resources or something, maybe that's the place to discuss the existence of the conservation commission as well.
The only other thing I would say is if you want to get, I mean, there's that part.
No.
In the public parking, I mean, we could also expand that to have a little conversation about on-street parking and its virtues
Yep.
and its,
Issues.
issues.
Yep.
And just put it out, I mean, I don't know that I feel comfortable having a policy or an action or something like that, but getting the issue out there that there is this tension between what some consider to be good planning practice and other constraints,
Right.
how it affects other.
Or even the general notion of traffic calming, you know, because almost everything that's a traffic calming measure gets in the way of snow removal. you know.
Yeah, well, it's funny, Liz had mentioned
Snow
to
in
me
itself
that
is a
the
traffic
trans,
count.
or with
Yes.
you, it was one of the two of you that mentioned there's no discussion of complete streets in transportation. I mean, we hit on it hard in land use,
Yeah.
but it's not in transportation, so,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that can
That's
open up.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, get it in here and get all of that, the traffic safety committee and
Yeah.
Yeah.
on-street parking and.
Yeah, actually, I think it's reversed. It's taken out land use and put in transportation.
Yes, I think that's what we had discussed.
But you need to talk about it, or just reference it.
Right.
Yeah.
Reference both.
Yeah.
Put it one place and reference it the other.
So move it from land use?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And then we can have that link with the traffic safety committee and the transportation committee, and I don't know the difference between the two. Transportation was, no, we don't need to get into it.
No, don't even start. After trying to remember.
Does the parking garage, does that, are there,
We did it.
the parking garage and the lot, is that, if there's gonna be more development downtown, on a night when you can't park on the street, there are enough spaces, even with potential new housing units, to accommodate all of the people who would potentially have
I
cars?
think it would depend on what the use was. I mean, I don't.
I'm not clear what you're asking.
Okay.
Are you asking whether people check to see that the number of off-street parking spaces downtown is adequate for all the residential uses downtown to be accommodated? Is that what you're asking? I'm not sure what you're asking.
I have no idea of what you just said.
Well,
So what I'm saying is, if there are going to be what's existing now, if there are going to be additional housing units in
You're looking
Brooks
to the
House,
future.
and for the co-op, and potentially on Canal Street, if there are 6-unit facilities, 6-unit housing, does the parking garage accommodate, will it be able to accommodate all of that?
Well, isn't it the responsibility of the people who proposed the Brooks House
That's
to
right.
assure that they have adequate parking
Mm-hmm.
for that use, or that adequate parking exists in the downtown and the parking?
And they already had it anyways, because it was already, wasn't
It
It's
it?
is
not
part
the-
of their proposal.
Yeah, it's not the town's responsibility
No.
to ascertain that, it's the applicant's responsibility.
But wouldn't it make it more attractive to an owner if there were parking spots available?
Well,
to
the parking
people?
spots are
Yeah.
the parking spots, but that's what developers do when they present before the boards, right? You're on the board, don't they tell you?
I get that, but,
Yeah.
so the Brooks House, if you look at the plan right now, that parking lot for the Brooks House doesn't exist, it's green space, I think there are a couple spots, maybe. So those people in theory are going to be parking in the parking garage when you can't park at night, right?
Well, they better rethink that, don't you think?
Well, it's not my call.
It's not our responsibility.
Yeah.
I know it's not, but if we're trying to encourage people to, don't we want to cooperate with people who want to do any
Well,
any kind of
there's,
development downtown?
aren't there architects and engineers who make their living explaining to applicants what parking needs are and how to accommodate them?
Yeah, I guess we're not on the same page.
I think
I'm saying-
actually,
You did, I think you
We don't-
said what she said, but she didn't.
Right. In the urban center, which includes the Brooks House,
Yeah.
you don't have to show that there's adequate parking for the development. And so you're not required to show parking as part of your site plan. And moreover, there's a restriction on demolishing anything in the urban center and turning it into surface parking. So there's basically a prohibition on switching, say, from an old home to make more surface parking lots. So there is this pretty clearly finite number of parking spaces in the urban center. And as far as I know, I mean, I'm sure we can figure out what the number of those spaces is, but I don't think anyone's done the work to figure out how many beds you have or could potentially have, and therefore how many cars you need to accommodate overnight. Is
So
that?
that's the
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell rule?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That's very nice.
Well, a while ago, when Brattleboro Savings and Loan built their new building, they took a
Ah, yes.
house down on
Walnut
Walnut
Street.
Street. They
To build that
got
parking
moved out to Upper Dummerston Road and to build that parking lot, and that was probably the event that kind of galvanized
Right.
people about this whole issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was
I remember.
taking out residential for parking. Yeah.
Right. Just like Joni Mitchell song.
Yeah, it's not paradise over there, but you know, it's really close.
It's
Because
right around the corner from it.
because the church is right down the street. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, we're looking at the rivers.
so what I'd say is, what you point to a good potential problem that needs to be resolved. And so what I'd say, that maybe this is a solution in terms of the way the chapter is drafted. We have recommended in other parts of the plan that a downtown master plan needs to be developed. And so I think that parking is going to be a very volatile and interesting topic to encounter when the downtown master plan is undertaken. And it would be around issues of daytime management of parking as well as, you know, winter, nighttime parking needs and the total number of, you know, the total accommodation of parking needs and for what segments of the community. So I think also the more upmarket residential development we have, and if I'm right, the Brooks House is a move up market in terms of its proposed Brooks House redevelopment is a move up market. People's expectations about what happens to their car when they're sitting in it go up
That's right.
as well. And so many of them may not feel that comfortable even about leaving their car in a parking garage. So that's a market force that the developers of the Brooks House will encounter, I think. In other words, it's a very specific and pretty small subset, I think, of the population who would be willing to live in Brattleboro in a downtown setting and not have a car, or live there and have a car that they were not that worried about in terms of where it was.
People around here don't seem very worried about their cars. I mean, they put bumper stickers all over them.
Welcome to Vermont.
Oh, no, that's a different phenomenon. That's holding the bump together.
Right,
So-
instead of duct tape, they use thick
Right.
bumper
So
stickers.
it used to be that you got a great car and then it matched the duct tape. So, you know, I think there's a way in which that's going to kind of get. We may end up getting to a point where, you know, the residents of Hookadunham, as it is now, and other, you know, upper level apartments and so forth downtown are going to start expressing a desire to have better accommodations for off-street parking more suited to their needs. And I don't know the best way to encounter that, and I think the master plan is a good way to actually lay that out. Theoretically, it's possible that the parking garage can have decks added to the top of it, so it can be bigger.
They can.
I think my understanding is that it can be bigger. They may want to upgrade the quality of the glue holding the bits of concrete together, but So that's how it's built, in case you're wondering. And you know, there's other solutions. So you could,
Yeah.
So but I think you actually point to a good point, that there actually is kind of a finite number of parking spaces. So the more people you load in here as residents, the sooner you're going to confront the question about how best to accommodate their parking needs. Unless, of course, everyone just gives their cars up.
Or build
So they
apartment
don't have
buildings.
to show it?
No, not
No.
not
Downtown.
Not in the downtown, not in the urban centre. Which is exactly how the co-op was able to do what they did with 21 units. So none of those units had to show
Parking.
parking. And it's expressly part of their project that none of them will be allowed to park in the co-op parking lot. The off-street parking.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
so I just have three things, and I don't want to talk about them, but would town government ever commit to using trains to travel to and from Montpelier and Burlington? How about that?
What is the,
You know how the trains run to
Yeah.
Montpelier and Burlington, and they're
Yeah.
really cheap,
Mhm.
really cheap. I wonder if, when town officials are going to those places, if they would ever,
not so cheap when you have to stay
Uh-huh.
overnight.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, you
I'm
know,
okay
it's
for-
funny because the museum mentioned that because they had people from Burlington come down to Brattleboro for the day. And they made a big point about how it cost $12. Great. But if you wanted to do the opposite and go north, it's late in the day.
yeah.
So you can't go up there by train for a meeting
For that day.
for the day and come back.
Yeah.
It only works in the other direction.
Yeah, I'm
I
totally,
get that.
I'm totally okay with it, and I just want to point out that the last time I was in Montpelier for a meeting, it lasted under half an hour.
Is that right?
I was touched. I thought it was really nice of them to make that time available. Okay, so I'm okay. Take
It's just a thought.
3 days,
If it
30
ever
minutes.
gets to be
I'm
more
totally
convenient,
cool with it.
it
I
would
could
be a
ride my
really
bicycle.
neat thing if we
That
said
is-
we
I
were
mean, that-
supporting the training system by using it.
Yeah.
How about that?
I think that that could be part of one of the things that we would ask, Amtrak, in addition to that early morning train stopping in Brattleboro,
To upgrade to diesel trains.
have more trains go in the morning
Uh-huh.
north.
Yeah.
They run in the night, but they're freights.
Just to keep you awake, it's a different program altogether.
That's right.
The
Two different times.
Hobo.
I heard them last night.
That's right,
Live.
Hobo Express.
town officials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, Gary, anytime you want me to spend 3 days in Montpelier, I'm totally up for
All right. I'm done.
it. All right.
Anybody else done? Everybody else done?
Well, doesn't Sue want to get out the new implementation?
I do want to give it,
Thought you gave it out last time after I left.
no, we got a better one now.
Oh, better. I can throw that one
I
away.
do care, and I want one of
You
those.
just send me back.
Yeah, you don't want to go without this, Gary.
It's still, so what you'll see in the next draft, because I thought that this was, both when I reviewed it with Rod and with
Excuse me.
Liz, it was
Oh.
pretty instructive as to how useless some of our actions were.
Yeah.
So they've either been dropped or
Oh.
strengthened to be more specific about what we're gonna do. So I have to now take this and work it into some of our action steps
There, yeah.
in the chapter. It's not a big deal, but we had a lot of, if we couldn't figure out who the responsible party was, it was like, well, then why do we have it? There were quite a few actions that we thought were getting into the work plans for different committees, how the arts committee was gonna do something, how the conservation commission or energy committee, and so we kind of thought those things can happen on their, their work plan can be their work plan.
Yeah.
It's set the overall. So I think in the end, it's gonna be an improvement to our actions, and even, some of the policies in the economic development and whatnot, so. It's still a work in process, but I wanted you to be able to kind of see.
Oh, and did you want to talk briefly about the shaded areas on the far right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
we messed around with the most appropriate kind of meta headings, which is the commitment of resources and land use regulations. What we're really trying to do here is summarize, mostly for people, not on the planning commission, what the expected effect of the action would be. So in terms of commitment of resources, we have whether it's going to be handled by existing town staff, whether it's going to be part of the general fund operating budget, which is the next column, whether it's going to involve capital, or whether it's going to involve a grant.
Or it has the potential.
Or has the potential to involve a grant. So there are some instances where you could check every box, but and so things like including when you ask to have included in the economic development chapter the appointment of an economic development officer, that would turn up as a commitment of resources of general fund, the operating budget. But not anything. And so what we want to try and demonstrate as clearly as possible is what the budgetary implications of the plan are, both in terms of the general fund, the operating fund, and capital planning. And then, because so much of it is to do with land use regulations, whether it has to do with either of the two major documents for land use regulation.
Okay, something really wacky happened. I'm gonna have to resend it. The human pages are missing. I don't know. I thought I did the two-sided.
All right.
Oh yeah,
I copied it wrong.
I was struck by how short it was.
I was too, and I was hoping.
It's about half the length it's
Oh,
supposed
yeah,
to be.
they are.
All
They're
right.
back to back,
I
but
will
only
resend
eight
them.
odd numbers, so we can get it again. All right.
What you do forget me.
That's odd.
When I do it at 5:30 at night, you guys can recycle those, or I'll take
All right.
them and I'll get you
So-
new ones. Sorry.
So that's where we're going, and then eventually, when we format it, it will be formatted so that it's on. It'll be landscape. It'll be landscape, and it'll probably be legal. So, which won't be a big deal. It'll give us a little bit more room. No, we don't think so. Yeah. Right.
People size will be a little cumbersome to handle, though.
Well, most people won't be having it as paper, so it'll just be that you scroll
This
across.
seemed to work just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
All right.
I mean,
Okay.
slippery format.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry about that. My intention was good.
It's okay. It's okay.
We'll send you one.
Gary, you're
We'll
so
send
cool
you.
tonight.
We'll send you one anyway, Gary. All right. Special signed one.
I'll be looking for it
Okay.
every day.
Before we adjourn, I just want to acknowledge Gary for all his service to the Planning Commission all these years. You came on way before me, but of our current commission, I think I'm the only one who's been here the longest. And I just want to thank you for your leadership and your knowledge and your sense of fairness, I guess is the word, or equity, when dealing with things, especially things that are real controversial, and also for keeping people like me in line. I have to say that because I'm a little sometimes, but
When
anyway.
did I ever do that?
Never.
Oh, Gary, go.
Anyways, just thank you for your leadership for the Planning Commission for the last couple of years. It was exemplary, and thank you very much.
I'll second.
And we'll miss you.
Well, I will miss being here.
And you're
It's been a lot of fun, and a lot of times, and it's been a really good, I didn't know what it was. I got on the planning commission from doing Putney Road stuff, and, I think you both find out how little and how much you can do,
That's right, yeah.
In a sense, it's surprising both ways, I think, So, but it's been great working with everybody. I really have enjoyed it, and I'll probably get back into something or other in a while. Not a short while, but in a and fun.
Yeah.
In a nerdy sort of way, you know, so.
You bring your perspective, you've brought your perspective as a citizen, but also as a business owner and part of the Putney Road Association too, and I think that's valuable on a planning commission, you know, the makeup of the commission to be broad and balanced from all perspectives is really important, and the role, the piece that you brought was excellent.
And the history of what transpired.
Yes.
Yeah, I earned some experience.
Yes.
I mean, I would say that just one thing about, it looks like there's a pretty ambitious agenda coming up, you know, which is all about writing ordinances and everything, so it's, I think it's going to be,
He's wishing us luck, haha.
yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging,
Yeah.
you know, because this stuff is one thing and it's great, and it really is kind of the roadmap for that stuff, but, you know, all the things that sound good and, you know, everything like that, things change when you start codifying it, I guess, you know, and
Don't we know?
hubba. So have fun.
Thanks.
You know,
Thanks, Gary.
you know, when the
Yeah.
public comes and, you know, push comes to shove, fall back on what you believe in.
Good advice.
Yep.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
you guys too. I mean, it's great having
Thank you, Gary.
a department that does things that, you
Yeah.
know, that we don't have to have it on ourselves to do those things.
So when you started on Putney Road, who was the planning director there?
Jim Mullen, yeah.
So
So
you
that was after
did,
Shane.
you went around for Shane?
I never worked with Shane at all, I think.
So it was Jim and Phyllis and
Yeah,
was Justin there, or it must have been Alice at first?
Alice was, yeah, yeah, and then,
That came
you
in
know, that
after
one
Jim, too.
period of time, it was just total turnover.
Right.
So it's pretty, you know, you guys have, the department is stable.
And me.
Indeed.
How long have you been?
Yes, the cleanup,
Upper.
you guys.
February the 4th, 2008, 8/25. Just saying, you know, roughly.
So how long have you been? September 14th, 2009. And I took my first day off on September 15th.
That's right. That was.
Unplanned.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you were so upset. That was really fun.
My husband crashed his truck.
Oh.
He called me from the
Oh.
hospital.
Yeah, it was a bad start. You're right. So, yeah, so it's getting on.
That was 2008 you came on?
February.
So I must have come on in 2007,
Yeah.
because I had a little bit of Jim,
Right,
and then
right.
Okay,
well, I motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.